Most agents walk out of open houses empty-handed. And by that I mean they walk out without having sold the house that they held open, and they walk out without a single prospect for a client who they met, who came through the door with the intent of maybe buying a house that day, and they can't quite figure out what went wrong during the interaction with the potential client that caused rapport to break. In reality, it's not a matter of talent. It's not a matter of know-how or natural ability. It is a matter of a very structured conversation and a very specific sequence that has to be in place to ensure that you engage with a potential client in a way that sets you up for an appointment before the client ever walks out the door. Today, I'm going to walk you through the entire LMA sequence that leads from that initial critical qualifying question that you ask through the conversation, the critical exit conversation that helps you then engage the potential client and move them to an appointment, and exactly how to powerfully close so that by the time you finish the conversation, you've built rapport and you are leaving with a signed future client. So watch all the way through because you need to use the script exactly as it's written. And if you stick with me until the very end, I'm going to give you a little bit of magic, a special prompt you can use so that you can practice this script and refine your skill so your next open house can become your next appointment. By the end, you're going to know exactly how to structure this. And what you see here is the exact full process. Again, the words matter. So we're going to go through the exact script so you know exactly how to say what you need to say to engage that potential future client. At the List Realty, this is exactly what we're doing. I'm Meredith Fogel, founder of the List Realty and team lead, and we are actually internally here running an intensive, kind of like a boot camp, teaching our agents how to run this sequence perfectly, getting them word perfect, getting them really comfortable with the scripts, and practicing with each other in more and more challenging situations here in the office, because what we don't want to do is practice on the public. So don't practice on your potential future clients. Figure out a way to practice this on your own. And again, if you stick with me, I'm going to give you a cool way to do that by yourself, even if you're not with a brokerage who gives you the ability to role play like we're doing here. But for our agents, it's working really, really beautifully. You might have also seen us share some of this on Instagram. And as a matter of fact, I had somebody reach out to me on Instagram this week letting me know that although he only had one person come through his open house, he used the LMA sequence and he converted that person to a client right there at the open house. That's the kind of power this process provides to you. Now, what's really great about this too is if you keep watching these videos, I'm going to show you how to make sure that you get more traffic at your open houses. So although that was 100% success rate for this agent, which is awesome, I want you guys to have more at bats. So we'll get to that in a future video. The reality is lead capture at an open house starts the minute somebody walks through the door. And if you've ever listened to or watched my podcast, So You Want to Be a Real Estate Agent, you've heard me tell the story of being inspired partially to get into real estate because of my experience attending open houses and being completely ignored by the agents holding the open house. So just by virtue of acknowledging the person who walks through the door, you're already doing better than a lot of agents out there. So give yourself a pat on the back for that. This is the structure that I have found will give you success. It is a roadmap that if you follow it, it works 100% of the time. That's exactly the blueprint that I'm going to give you today. So here's where you start. The person walks through the door. You want to ask them first how they found the open house. Open-ended questions are great, but in this case, you want to give them two options. Did you find the house through signs, or did you find it online? The reason that that is useful is that it helps you qualify the person in terms of where they currently are. Did they find you online? Maybe they're working with an agent in that case, not necessarily. But if they found you through signs, they either live in the neighborhood now, or they maybe found you as they were driving by. They're probably relatively high intent if that's the case, but they also might not have any idea what the home is listed at. So it becomes a different conversation depending on what the source of the person coming into the open house is. But remember, make no mistake, these people are not just wasting their time. They're not tire kicking for the most part. These people are taking time out of their busy lives and their busy weekend schedules to come in and walk through the threshold to engage with us, a scary real estate agent, right? And to actually look at a house. So there's something in their brains that they're thinking about buying a house. Now, they might also be thinking about selling a house. And we're going to talk about what that conversation looks like in another video. Today, we're going to talk more about how you engage with a potential future buyer at an open house. So once you figure out where the buyer has come from and you have gone through your sign-in and check-in process, I'm sure with your brokerage, you have a system in place that makes sure that the client is signing in and that you're determining whether they're already working with an agent and that you've got a secure process so that the seller and you are protected during the open house. Then you're giving them some kind of a spiel about the house. Now, this is where sellers coming into the open house will decide whether they want to work with you in the future or not. Because remember, they're interviewing you in their mind, subconsciously or otherwise, trying to figure out how good of a job is this agent doing presenting this seller's property. So you want to have a few things that you tell the person about the house as they're coming in. Come up with some things that the buyer might not be able to notice through just regularly walking through the house. Maybe there's a cool cedar closet, or maybe there's a great exterior feature they should check out. And then let them know you'll be right here if they have any questions. You're doing a couple things there. You're setting an expectation that you're going to check back in with them, and you're letting them kind of know the process is you walk through and then you come back and you talk with me afterwards. So you're going to say, take a look around, I'll be right here, and I'm excited to hear what you think about the house after you've toured it. I'll see you back when you're finished. All right, so here is where things get important and serious. This is after the tour. This is what I call that vital exit conversation. And this is the piece most agents miss. While the person has been walking through the house, you've reviewed their check-in form, you know whether they're working with an agent, hopefully you got a little bit of information about them, or maybe you know they just didn't do a very thorough job filling out the check-in form. Make sure you take a look so you're prepared for that exit conversation. Assuming the person is not working with an agent, you want to now get into a more in-depth conversation so that you know whether this is a potential viable client for you. Here's exactly what that looks like. And it starts with the key first question when the person has finished touring the house. That question is not, can you see yourself living in the house? It's not, did you like the house? It's none of those things. This is important to get word perfect. Use exactly this script. Is this a home that would work for you? That's it. Pretty simple. Sounds like a closed question, but really it isn't. It's a question that gets their wheels turning. And even if it takes a minute for them to answer the question, use silence to your advantage here. Don't talk. We know silence can be uncomfortable, but let the time spin out, let them think. You'll see them going back into their brain to think, is it a house that can work for me? They may say yes, they may say no. They may say maybe. We get that a lot, right? Here's another important tip. Resist the urge to dig deeper about why this house doesn't work for them. Unless it seems like they're on the verge of potentially making an offer on this house, if they say yes, that's a different conversation. Or if they give you buying signs, then we don't go into the next piece of this. In case they give you buying signs, then you ask, are you ready to make an offer and sell that listing that you're holding open? But for the purposes of this exercise, we're going to assume that that is not the case. We're going to assume that you're getting a maybe or you're getting a no. You're getting signals that it is not a property that would work for this particular buyer. Here, you want to acknowledge. So here's the important piece of this. And again, this is pretty nuanced communication, but I know you guys are good salespeople. You'll get this right away. What you want to do is acknowledge and then ask another question. So if it's a no, that's, oh, okay, no. Well, then let me ask you. And here's where the LMA questions come in. So I want to pull back and give you a broad strokes overview of what you should be thinking in your mind as you're having this conversation. You need to kind of have a mental checklist that you have gotten all this information by the end of the conversation. And if you haven't, that means you haven't asked enough questions. Here's what you should know by the time a buyer leaves the open house. 1, where is the buyer looking? 2, where does the buyer live now? 3, what is the buyer's motivation for buying a home? Motivation questions can include timeline. So I'm going to show you a little bit about what this looks like. So the buyer is having that conversation with you. You ask, is this a home that would work for you? They think for a second, they go, I don't think so. Oh, okay, you don't think so. Let me ask you, is this the specific neighborhood you are looking in? And then again, you're quiet, right? Don't double ask questions, don't stack questions. Sometimes we tend to do that. A single question is all you need here. And then let them answer. So if they say, yes, this is the specific neighborhood we're looking in. Okay, great. Resist the urge to go deeper here. So many agents want to say, what is it you love most about this neighborhood? Don't do that. But you can ask a follow-up location question if you don't already know it from the sign-in form, which is, where do you live now? Now that's a question that's going to lead you to the seller-buyer kind of crossroads, which we're going to tackle in our next open house video. But for right now, we're going to assume for the purposes of this video that they live in the neighborhood and they're renting. So let's just say they say, well, we live in the neighborhood now. Actually, we're renting a place. Okay, great. So now we know where they're looking. Check. We know where they live. Check. What do we not know? We don't know their motivation for selling. So we haven't asked enough questions. So we need to ask next something to the effect of, what is prompting a move for you right now? Or you can ask something like, what's your ideal timeline for making a move? Those two questions working in conjunction work really, really beautifully. So I find if I ask first something like, what's prompting a move for you? Then they'll say something like, oh, well, our lease is up. And then I'll say, I will resist the urge to say, how much longer is your lease? I'll say, okay, your lease is almost up. What's the ideal time frame for you for making a move? And then they'll say something like, well, we're on a month-to-month now. The sooner the better, but for us, it's more about finding the right house. Again, you want to reflect back to them what they say. Okay, great. So month to month, it's about finding the right house for you. Now, here's another red flag for you, for your own scripting. You're going to have the urge to say, well, is this a house that would work for you? Or have you found any houses that work for you? Not yet. You're not there. You're just collecting, gathering information at this point, and you're building rapport. Now, there is one more key piece of information we need, of course, before we proceed to try and engage this person as a client, which is we need to clarify and affirm that the person is not already working with an agent. So again, looking at their check-in form or however you have them signed in, or maybe they can give you this information, simply ask the question, are you currently working with a buyer's agent? Sometimes we'll get a yes. Sometimes we'll get a kind of, a friend's been showing us houses, whatever. But in any case, we need as agents to stay within our ethical duties to confirm that there is no standing agency agreement. So super simple question, right? Do you have a signed buyer agency agreement with that person? If it's a yes, then great. We'll let the person know that you came through the open house. Thank you so much for coming. You're going to stop the conversation there because we can't overstep into another agent's agreement territory. If they say no, then the door is wide open for you to convert that customer into your next client. So now I'm going to give you the biggest secret. This is what converts these open house visitors into future clients. This is the hook. And the hook looks like this. First you ask, how have you been finding homes to tour? What do most people say? Online, right? They'll say Zillow, they'll say Redfin. Well, we've been looking online. Here is the question that will change everything for you, changed everything for us. Do you want to see all the houses on the market or just the ones online? They always have this like wide-eyed stare when you ask that question. They're like, you can see the wheels turning. This kind of like question mark appears behind their eyes. And they usually go, what do you mean? And this is where you need to know your local data. For here in our area, 25% of the houses sell without ever going on the open market. That's exactly what I say. When they get that kind of like glossy stare, I'll say, yeah, I don't know if you know this, but 25% of the houses that sell here in the Kentlands and Lakelands never go on the MLS. which means if all you're doing is looking on the MLS, you are missing 25% of the houses that sell. You might have missed the house that might have felt like the right one for you, but don't worry, now you found an agent who has access to those listings. Would it benefit you to know about the houses that are not on the open market? That is a question that no one can answer no to. So ask that question and watch the game completely change. The conversation instantly shifts when you ask that question. Here's the answer you'll get 100% of the time. Yeah. And then sometimes they follow it up with, do you have a list of houses that aren't on the open market? And of course you do, right? You're in a brokerage where you have a list of coming soons, or you have a list of off MLS properties or office exclusives. And if you don't have the perfect home for this buyer, don't worry. We're gonna do a follow-up video that's gonna tell you exactly how to find off-market inventory. But we have a network of people that we interact with every single day who has houses coming on the market. So even if you're a brand new agent and you don't have a running list yet, guess what? You have other agents that you can ask, and they have off-market listings, believe me. So you do have access that these buyers don't yet have. And that is what buyers want. When you can tell a buyer that you have something that they need that they can't access on their own, that's the secret sauce that converts that customer into a client for you. So then it's a very easy transition from here. Typically what you're going to be doing is asking them something like, well, have you thought about the wants, the needs that you have for a new house, or have you put a wish list together? And then they'll say, well, yeah, we started thinking about it. And then you say, well, great. Then our next step is for us to get together so I can hear all about that wish list and compare it to my off-market list to see whether I can make a match. A lot of what I do for clients is really matchmaking, finding that perfect home, which much of the time is not a home that you will find on the MLS. What works for you? Evenings, weekends, daytimes? You guys know how to close. So that's what it looks like. From beginning to end, and that critical last piece of the conversation, you can see how magically it works. Here's the thing. You have to practice this. This does not come immediately easy to every human being. And I've done this probably thousands of times, which is why it sounds so smooth coming from me. But our agents here at the List, we practice this every single day together so that when they go out into open houses, they're coming back with signed clients because they do know how to say this so naturally. And what we know is when you learn a script and you really get it into your cells on that kind of a level, then you can start to riff a little bit and make it your own, but you don't want it to sound scripted or stilted. You want it to sound very smooth as you're rolling through it. So you can certainly corral your spouse, your partner, your child, somebody in your office to role play this with, but we don't all have access to that. And if you're like me, at a certain point, your spouse and your kids are gonna get really tired of you asking them to role play with you. So I've got a really cool tool that I'm gonna give you to use, which is a prompt that you can use with ChatGPT, and it's written in a very specific way so that you can role play with your GPT partner. And I'm gonna tell you exactly how to make that happen with a voice portion of GPT. A lot of people don't know that exists. So I'm going to walk you through how to get there. Scan this QR code and we will send you all of the information.